Welcome is a man of the word. And Lord, we just thank you for the word that Tim's going to bring this morning, Lord. It's a word in season, a word of power, and a word of might in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Julie. Good morning, everyone. How are we? Are you excited? Cool. So this is, for those who have been following us, the last sermon we're going to have on poverty, riches, and wealth. And so it's going to be exciting. Now, just to let you all know that I was preparing and things like that and chatting with my family about it. And what we're talking about this morning is don't worry. And my family have invited to sing the song Hakuna Matata from The Lion King. Maybe you guys are familiar with that. So Rose said, if you're tanking, I'll start singing. So you can all join in with them if that happens. So we'll see how that goes. So we've been talking about poverty, riches and wealth. And, in this series, we've looked at the poverty mentality and the kingdom mindset. And I just felt this morning that, the thing which probably is a great, a central thing, a common theme throughout the poverty mentality is that we find ourselves worrying about things. And, I think that stands out the most because worry diminishes your faith and your strength to apply the other learnings, right? So, if you've got a fear of the future or if you've got a fear of failure or you worry about those things, it can be very paralyzing. But a successful person does not allow worry to control or influence them. So this morning we're talking about worry. And my goal for you today is that you would be set free from worry and its hold on your life and on your finances. That you would trust the Lord and be equipped and empowered to find peace in the midst of turmoil. So that's my goal for you today. And, the big point, as I just said before, is a successful person does not allow worry to control or influence them. And you might say, yeah, it's kind of common sense, Tim, I guess. And, that's probably true, but it's just one of those truths that applies whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian. A successful person does not allow worry to control or influence them. And so this is the big point. If something happens and you need to go early or the Wi-Fi drops out if you're watching on YouTube, this is the big point on what we're talking about today. So I'm just going to really quickly just chat a little bit about me and a little bit of background in relation to this. And, as far as, my financial learnings have come, when I was little, my parents never really kind of like sat me down and had that chat about this is how money works and all those kind of things. This is how finances works and this is what a poverty mentality is and this is what a kingdom mindset is about. So I never really had that. And, I probably made a few mistakes which made me aware of a need to learn. And I can recall early in our marriage, and I've shared this with some of you guys before, there was one time there where, we had this credit card with $4,000 on it and we were renting and all that kind of thing, and we maxed it out. And when you max out that credit card and you need to buy something and there's no money in my savings account, there's no money in Rose's savings account, there's a credit card that's completely maxed out, it's like, wow, there's a bit of a learning there that needs to happen. And then, further to this, in our journey and learning together as husband and wife, I remember Rose used to have these like little kind of random stick-it notes and notepads, and she'd scribble like, I need to get this for the washing, I need to get this for the... I need to get a new pair of shoes because they're wearing out and all that kind of stuff. And I was just, just going along life and just kind of just spending what I felt like when I felt like. And, and if I needed it, I'd get it. And if I felt like it, I'd get it. And all those, if I wanted it, I'd get it. And those type of things. But, Rose said, look, maybe it's not the greatest idea. And I listened to her and I thought, yeah, you're right. But like most guys, let's be honest, I kind of like take a bit more to learn, and hence the credit card was the real warning that, whoa, I've got to change what we need to do. So we started doing things like budgeting. Who loves a good budget? Oh yeah, very exciting. Best time of the week, isn't it? Or month or whatever it is. So we talked about, we started to realise that we probably need to spend less than we earn, Beyond that, I started to transition into a phase where I felt like God was calling us to be more victorious in areas of finances. And so I started to read what the Word said about things like sowing and reaping. I started to learn things about tithing, and I started to apply things like, being generous and that, when God wants us to be able to give to other people, we've got an open hand, right? And so that when that happens, that open hand's got something that he can then also give into us, and it's a flow that's going on. So I started to learn these things, and at the same time, we started to do property investing. We sold our house, and that has been successful because it was like, applying it in terms of planting seeds and reaping harvest. And, we've been able to give to, different people in the church, and that's been great. But yet the thing which is amazing, even though you can be successful in financial things, I still find myself falling into the trap of worrying every now and then. The everyday bill that oh my gosh, the phone bill, and then there's the mobile phone bill, and then there's the, we've got like some extra medicines or supplements and vitamins that we need to spend money on, and the kids have got basketball and Cairo, and there's a school camp, and you know what? Soon I haven't had a pay rise in a while, and all these thoughts can come in life, right? That we can experience this type of thing, and I think that financial anxiety is probably more common than you would think. And not just for someone in my situation, we've got those who are responsible for providing, they feel that burden. They feel that burden. The person who's responsible for providing, because they feel like it's a bit of a game of like tug and war, right? It's like, whoa, there's the expenses. Oh, we were able to save a little bit this week. And so, that is something that the attention that you can feel if you're the person who's responsible for providing. And maybe you're like a situation like me where you're a contractor and you only get paid when you go to work. So if you need to have a day off for some reason, the pay doesn't come in. And then it's like, oh, wow, that's a bit of a tension, right? So for those of you who have had debt, you would probably have come and worried about it. For, at some point, there's a burden with that and a drain on you. And you may wonder, will I ever get out of underneath this? For those of you who've been raised in a family that, did not have a lot of money, has anyone been in one of those situations? Or you've experienced a loss or a significant event where it impacted the family financially and we had to give up some things? Those people might have elements of worry in the way they perceive and think about finances, okay? For children who live in a society where it seems like everyone else has the better thing, the new thing, the shiny thing, why is it that they get an iPad? Why is it that they get to have a mobile phone? I want the latest lol doll, right? Now, us as parents, we look at that and we say, oh, well, they're an entitled society, but that doesn't stop them worrying about it, right? That doesn't actually solve the problem in their perception and thinking around finances. For the retired, we've got superannuation funds and the RBA drops its interest rate again, and gee, that savings account isn't producing very much at all. And then, the stock market's up and down, and for the retired, if you're living on a pension, that can be a difficult thing. And for the self-employed, especially people like farmers and things like that, you've got a drought for a couple of years, it can be very worrying. Yeah, for students who have got a debt and, and they have to go to work to be able to actually, get to uni and study, and the debt's building, and then they're thinking, gee, I'm in one of those careers that seems like people don't just walk out of uni and get a really big, great job. It's actually hard to get a job after it. So there's all these different situations, but the reality is that no matter what stage of life you're in, there's possibly always a reason to worry, isn't there? All right, so we're just going to have a look a little bit more about what is worrying. Worrying is the feeling uneasy or being overly concerned about a situation or a problem, whether it's real or imagined, and that's important because sometimes we need to identify the difference. So with excessive worrying, your mind and body go into overdrive as you constantly focus on what might happen. Yet most of what we worry about actually never happens. So worry and anxiety can actually be driven from our attempt to control life. And this is especially common in finances. It's evident that we put up defences and structures in place which we seek to avoid pain or loss or suffering. In other words, have you been hurt or experienced loss and said, I'll never let that happen again? I'll never let her do that again, or never let him do that again. Have you ever been in that situation financially? And we can tend to not trust again and block up and put up these walls. So maybe you've lent money to someone and they didn't pay you back. Maybe you went into business with someone and, they stole or were fraudulent, follow through on promises which they said they would do, and it impacted you financially. And maybe you gave money to a homeless person and they blew the money and they, spent it on cigarettes or alcohol when you were expecting this homeless person to use the money for food or shelter or something like that. So that is, the type of things that can happen. And our natural response is to control. And we can put into place little rules that we think protect us. But sometimes this actually is building walls around us. So I'm actually not saying that we should ignore pain or loss or suffering, okay? It's just that we should not let worry consume us, and we should not let worry shape us. So here's a couple of mistruths about worry, 5 common beliefs about worry that compel us to keep doing it, okay? So here they are. If I worry, I'll never have a bad surprise. Not true. It's safer if I worry. Not true. I show I care by worrying. No. Worrying motivates me. Not really, it actually paralyzes. Worrying helps me solve problems. No, it doesn't, because usually people who worry don't actually end up taking the action to do something about it. So here's a couple of quotes, and I'm just wondering if you guys can relate to any of these quotes regarding worry, right? Worry never robs tomorrow of its sorrow, it only saps today of its joy. Can anyone relate with that? What about this one? Worry often gives a small thing a big shadow. People become attached to their burdens sometimes more than the burdens are attached to them. The greatest mistake you can make in life is to continually fearing you will make one. Winston Churchill said the next one, "When I look back on all these worries, I remember the story of the old man who said on his deathbed that he had a lot of trouble in his life, most of which never happened." And then the last one, if you treat every situation as a life or death matter, you'll die a lot of times. So, those are some common sayings about worry, and I think we can relate to most of those. So we need to consider a bit of this. It's a bit like a pendulum, right? So we don't want to be completely worrisome people, but we don't want to be happy-go-lucky, carefree, crazy, risky people at the same time. And so we need to consider what's a healthy concern versus an unhealthy worry. So some concern for the future may be unavoidable and in certain situations necessary and potentially helpful. We need the capacity to anticipate danger, detect and deal with fundamental threats to our basic survival, to motivate and energize us, and to warn us when we have been inauthentic or betrayed our basic values, to grow more fully conscious and become more creative. But unhealthy worry is when we try to avoid or repress healthy warning systems and emotions. And we deny reality and our true feelings, and it can turn toxic, taking the form of persistent worrying, causing things like chronic tension, fatigue, disturbed sleep, headaches, irritability, restlessness, impaired concentration, digestive and other physical problems, panic attacks, paranoia, and a myriad of other debilitating psychiatric symptoms. That's a tongue twister. Our non-stop worry has made us sick, and then we actually worry about having these symptoms, which causes even greater anxiety. Worrying about worrying and worrying about the effect of the symptoms we're getting of worrying is not what we want to be. So when we consider that, I guess the truth is that constant worrying influences our peace and our harmony, our thoughts and our beliefs, and ultimately it affects the direction of our lives. So in terms of poverty, riches and wealth, what happens when we worry about money and finances, okay? What happens with this? When we worry about money and finances, we're stepping outside of the kingdom mindset. We focus on the problem and not the answer. The second thing is we exhaust time, energy, and emotion on things which won't change the outcome. I remember one time when I was working full-time at AGL and I finished up there and we decided to do contracting for the first time. And so what contracting is, it's kind of like a casual employee and you've got an agreed end date, but there's actually terms in your contract that say, with 2 weeks notice, we can say goodbye. Anyways, on this project that I was on, it was meant to go for 12 months with a possible, 12-month extension, like 2 years maybe. About 3 weeks into it, it got really quiet and it's like there was no task to do and people were kind of going in and just checking their emails, but there was no actual real deliverables to do. And I'm like, oh man, this is not good, right? Because I'm used to at AGL where, they ask you to do 200% of what one person should do. And, it's all due yesterday and all that kind of stuff. And I've come into this environment, it's like, there's nothing to do. Does that mean we're not needed anymore? Does that mean, what's going to happen? We just let go of the security of full-time work, moved into contracting, and I'm going to have this conversation with Rose. 3 weeks into it, it feels like it might be over, and I was worried about that. And I remember one of the senior business analysts came up to me and said, Tim, I can see what's happening here, but tell me this. If you worry about it, will it actually change the outcome? If you worry about it, is that going to keep you staying here as a job? No, it's not, right? So that's the thing about we exhaust this, this time and energy and emotion, and often cases it won't change the outcome. So we give power to fear and our faith dissipates, okay? We may not realize it, but our trust in the Lord comes into question. We ask things like, will he provide? Does he care? Does he know that things are bad? But this perspective and thinking has positioned our relationship with God as one that is distanced. We've kind of stepped out of that father-son relationship where we trust that God's got my back, Dad's got my back, and we've moved into this other position that's a bit more like servant and slave, okay? And then the fourth thing is when we worry about money and finances, there's this other response where we pretend it's not there. Putting our head in the sand like an ostrich, we just do whatever we can do to push this situation down the road, often making it worse, because we all know that when we don't deal with money issues, they come back bigger and harder, right? So that's the fourth thing that can happen. So this is what happens when we worry about finances. So if I was to we've been talking a bit about the psychology of worry, right? Now, if I was to give you the advice of what psychologists would say on how to reduce worry, they'd say things like this: calm the nervous system by doing things like exercise. By the way, all this advice is good, right? But I just want to let you know that this is what the world's solution to the problem is. But notice when you are worrying, okay? Notice when you're worrying and any beliefs that reinforce that worry. In other words, be aware, watch out for your triggers, and try not to worry when you notice your triggers. They say things like embrace uncertainty, so be investigative and inform yourself, because if you're informed, then you're likely less to worry. Unfortunately, that can sometimes lead to more worry, but anyway. They say live in the present, okay? So you don't want to think about the past and all the wouldas and couldas and shouldas. You don't want to think about, the what ifs, what happens if this happens, what happens if we lose what happens if he doesn't, and all those things. We want to live in the present. This is what they say, right? And the last one is face your fears. So be brave and courageous. So that's what psychologists would say in reducing worry. But you know what? For those of us who are Christians, we're going to go another level, right? We have got this amazing Bible, an amazing God who loves us so much that he's actually going to teach us a different way which we can apply and overcome worry, right? So, who is going to talk about this? Paul. Okay, we're going to be looking at Philippians 4. So Paul traveled a lot, right? He planted churches. Just think about the resources that it requires to plant a church. We're doing building beautification and talking about needing chairs and stuff like that, right? Think about from scratch what it requires to plant a church. Okay, he suffered trials and tribulations and had persecutions, right, he would have great reason to worry. He was stoned and beaten and shipwrecked. He was snake bitten. He was betrayed. And at the time of writing this letter to the Philippians, he was actually in prison. Okay? A guy who travels planting churches in pretty much most of the known cities at the world at that time would have required a fair bit of resources. Resources for things like transportation, for food, right? He would have required these things and clothing and, talk about the shipwreck, he would have needed something to keep warm and all those things. And that's what we would think today, right? Oh, if I'm going to go and plant churches, I'm going to... So I want you to listen to what we're talking about here in Philippians and think about this. It is the Bible, but think about this as a guy who's probably got more reason to worry than most of us, okay? So here it is. This is what Paul says. He says, rejoice in the Lord. And again, I'll say it, rejoice, okay? So this word rejoice is pronounced ka-ri-i-ro. Say ka-i-ro, say it. That's the Greek word, okay? And it's a verb which is like a doing word. So he's actually telling us to do something, okay? And therefore it's something we should probably do, right? So, okay, what does it mean? It means to rejoice or be glad. So in this context, it means to delight in God's grace, rejoice. Literally, to experience God's grace and favour. To be conscious, glad for his grace. So can you see now what we mean by rejoice in the midst of worry? Be conscious, be glad because God has given us grace, okay? Right? Now, in the middle of your struggle, whether it be financial or otherwise, rejoice, okay? Shift your attention to God and his grace, both his grace for your life in general and his grace for the particular situation that you're going through, okay? Now, you notice how it says, rejoice in the Lord always, and then it says it again, rejoice. I say it again, rejoice. So this repetition not only adds weight to the instruction, but it's also an instruction to do it more than once, okay? So I want you to, when you're in the midst of toil and you're rejoicing, I don't want you to just do it once, put it in the pocket, and then go away. I want you to actually consciously rejoice many times, okay? So the next verse says, let your gentleness be evident to all, because the Lord is near. So what Paul's saying here is when we are processing the concern or the problem that we have, do not let this impact our relationship with others around us. Do not shut off our love towards others or become snappy or angry because things are not going our way. Remember to be gentle to others, even amidst the trial, okay? Christians, we live our lives with a particular order of being, okay? An order which transcends or goes beyond destructive events in our life. The word gentleness in the Greek, in this context, can be exchanged with forbearance, okay? Which is patience, self-control, restraint, and endurance. Patience, self-control, restraint, and endurance. And you might ask yourself on the basis, what's the basis of this forbearance? Where am I getting this from? And, when we're in the middle of situations that threaten our control or our lives and disrupt our order of existence, where do I find the strength to get this, this forbearance or this gentleness? And see, this is the answer. The Christian identity, our identity as Christians, as sons and daughters of God, as Jesus followers, right? And our value does not reside in the fragile order of the control that we have on our life. Our identity and value reside in a vital living relationship with Christ the Lord. And that's why it says the Lord is near. Because the Lord is near. He is not far from us. And when things go wrong, this is where sometimes we are dying to ourselves. Paul says, it's no longer I live, but Christ who lives in me in Galatians 2:20. And this is the kind of perspective that we have when we're able to draw with this forbearance, okay? So the next verse 6 says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition and with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. So do not be anxious about anything, right? And you see how Paul says, rejoice in the Lord always. If he had just said rejoice in the Lord, okay, but hang on a minute, he's saying do it always. And, do not be anxious about anything. So these global kind of like terms which he uses, they can actually be a bit scary, right? And when we think about it, we might say, oh, come on, rejoice in the Lord always. I mean, do you know what I'm going through? Or, do not be anxious about anything. Like, are you serious? But what I want you to understand is that Paul has not just like theorizing about something. Paul was actually in prison when he wrote this, right? And he's actually saying, this is not my guesswork. This is how you get through. This is actually how you overcome worry, okay? And so it's actually coming from a perspective of truth, right? So he's explaining and demonstrating a truth that he has learned through years of faithful discipleship. This is not the argument of trust, but the framework of trust. Okay, he's not arguing this is how you trust. No, it's actually the framework on how we do it, okay? So he says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, in other words, instead of being anxious, do this other thing, right? Which is, in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God, okay? So prayer is talking to God and telling him about the situation, and petition is making a meek and humble, earnest plea for a specific need for something significant that we're requesting or asking of God. So we need to be humble, but we need to be specific in what we're asking about, all right? So you're probably asking, how do I present those requests to God? And I've got a couple of points to you here, all right? What we don't do is we don't go, oh, God, you know how you did the whole feed the 5,000 thing? I'd love, just do that now in my situation. That's not exactly how we go about it. I'll explain why, all right? So we need to be honest with God. God knows everything we think and feel, but still desires a relationship where you share it. So in your transparency, you're actually releasing this humility, right? When you actually share with God the pain and what you're going through. So David actually demonstrates this throughout the Psalms, okay? Now, the second thing is with thanksgiving, okay? Being thankful for what God has already done, being thankful for what you do have, being thankful for his creation, thankful for things which are already free, thankful for his grace, and thankful for his love and specific things he's done for you that have positively impacted your life. So you're going to declare that God is good, all right, when you're doing thanksgiving. And you're going to be asking according to his will. Remember when Jesus was in the garden, he prayed, oh, my Father, is it possible, if it is possible, oh, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me. Nevertheless, not my will, but your will be done. And he maintained an obedient a heart and a searching attitude without making any demands for God or coercing God. So we're actually asking according to God's will when we ask. The next one is check your motives, okay? In James 4:2-3, James says, you do not have because you do not ask. And when you ask, you do not receive because you ask with the wrong motives, that you may spend what you get on your pleasures. So when you're asking God, check your motives, okay? And then do not ask on the basis of what you've achieved because you do things like stick to the law. So the Pharisees used to do this. And it says in Luke 18:10-4 about how the Pharisees, when they prayed, they'd say things like, oh, God, I've followed the laws. I've followed the rules. I've done this. I've done that. And therefore, God, can you please do this for me? that's not what we do. We ask on the basis of God, not of what I've done or who I am, right? It's God who's the complete awesome person who's going to resolve this situation. When we ask, we need to have faith, okay? So I don't want you to ask with double-mindedness. Trust that God will act according to his will. This kind of trust in God is believing that he will do, believing that what he will do or what he will not do is best for you. You understand that trust? You're believing that what he's going to do or what he's not going to do is best for you, okay? And that he will take care of you and he will lead you and guide you. It's the trust which is found in Proverbs 5:3, which says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him and he will make your path straight." And lastly, we pray in the name of Jesus, okay, when we do it. There is power in the name of Jesus. The authority of the name changes our circumstances, okay? And you know, one thing I like to do when I pray in the name of Jesus is use the variant names of Jesus, such as, you know, Jehovah Jireh, which means the Lord will provide, or Jehovah Shalom, which means the Lord is peace. So that is how we present our requests to God. So what happens when we do this? What happens when we do this? This is the awesome part. This is the promise, okay? So he said, you know, do this, rejoice, do this, prayer and petition, do this, thanksgiving, but like, yeah, okay, then what? So this is the promise, all right? This is the good bit. You ready for it? He says, well, hang on, what he doesn't say is, I will answer all your prayers immediately. He doesn't say, you will never experience loss. He doesn't say, you will never have trials and tribulations. And he doesn't say, I'll give you what you want, right? What he does say is, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, we will get a peace. So there's all this turmoil and all this trouble with all our finances going along, and somehow, beyond all understanding, we can have peace, right? So that peace that he gives you goes beyond what other people would think is normal given the circumstances you're in. That's the kind of peace which actually allows you to still have joy, hope, and faith, even when things are tough, even when things are difficult. He is the source of hope when it seems helpless, okay? So what will that peace do? It will guard our hearts and our minds in Jesus Christ. It will actually be like, now that it seems like what we need to stop worrying about, right? What is it that you would think, if I need to stop worrying, what would help me from stop worrying? What about if I said to you, I'm going to guard your heart and I'm going to guard your mind from worry? Who would like that? Yeah? So that's what's happening here. He's actually giving us what we need to stop worrying. He's going to guard our hearts and our minds, okay? And so if that's happening, you'll be a lot less inclined to worry. And I can just see thoughts and things coming. So I want you to just visualize for a moment. Just pretend like, you know, here's your heart, right? And the enemy's coming to attack it with like some doubt or some fear or some worry. And it's like the attack's coming up to your heart, and then it's like God's put peace there and just goes and just falls off, right? I want you to visualize and understand he's guarding your heart from these attacks from the enemy, okay? So I think on whole, this passage shows the vast amount of love that God has for us and the trust that we need to have in him. So I hear you guys saying, okay, Tim, fair enough, but what practically do I need to do in order to actually do this? You know, when worry comes, what do I need to do, okay? And I say to you, you say the words, in the moment of your worry, when you feel it coming, I want you to say the words, don't worry, God's got this. Can everyone say it with me together? Don't worry, God's got this. So when you're in a moment of worry, that's the first thing I want you to do. I want you to say, don't worry, God's got this, okay? So, you know, I think part of the thing is that when we say to someone, I want us to help us, change a habit or change a lifestyle problem or whatever it is, and we say, oh, don't do that thing, well, that's actually kind of hard because we need something to actually replace it. So when I say don't worry, you're probably thinking, yep, I've tried that before, doesn't help that much, the old just don't do the thing, And when our instruction is to stop doing something, it's not easy to stop, is it? But we need to be able to replace that habit with a good one. In other words, we need to know what to do, not what not to do, okay? So part of identifying this, and it's explained by a teaching from Paul, is to take captive every thought. So in 2 Corinthians 5:10 it says, we demolish arguments and every pretension that sets itself up against the knowledge of God. And we take captive every thought to make it obedient to Christ. So we take captive every thought. I want you to think about that. Here's the worrying thought coming along. I've got it, okay? I'm going to have it captive. And then we actually check it, and we ask ourselves, is this against the knowledge of God? Is this worry against what God would want of me in my life? And is this concern is it a concern that you're highlighting to me, God? Do I need to adjust or change? Or is this an area where I just need to trust in you? And once you've checked it and heard from the Lord, I want you to be obedient to what he's guiding you to do, okay? But we must recognize that life happens, and sometimes our thoughts will return to worries because our minds just wander from one thought to the next. So we can set up an intention and then return to it when we notice our mind has drifted. So we can't eliminate all worries, but we can choose where we direct our attention. So that's why we're taking the thought captive. We're choosing to catch it and then direct it, okay? So here's the things which we've learnt in this scripture. Rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice again, okay? Recognize that the Lord is here. You're not alone. Tell the Lord that you're willing to surrender control. Be thankful. Pray and present your request to God, and we talked about how to do that. Trust in the Lord and recognize and thank God for the peace, okay? So you might be asking, why do I need to do this? The answer is that you need to do it because doing this will increase your faith, okay? There are two ends to consider with worry. At the end of worry, and if you continue down the path of fear, it actually leads to death. But if you live a life that is governed by peace and faith, then this leads to life. So which end would you rather have? I'd rather peace and life. And that's the reason why we need to do this. Imagine a world where you are able to approach your finances in faith. This unlocks your ability to read the other scriptures which God teaches on things of finance in the Bible and apply them. So you can start to believe the Philippians 4:19, which says, and my God will meet all your needs according to the riches of his glory in Christ. You need to do this because you can start to apply 2 Corinthians 9:6, which says sow and reap, because you're going to have a peace and a faith to be able to do that. You need to start to apply the give generously because you have a peace and a faith to do that. You need to apply the Malachi 3 and what he talks about in tithes because you're going to have a peace and faith to do it. And you need to understand Paul's statement in Philippians 4:12-13, and he says, I have learned the secret of being content in every situation, whether well-fed or hungry, whether living in plenty or in want. I can do all this through him who gives me strength. So these are the reasons why we need to start to do this, right? So with worry and fear behind you, you can be inspired and empowered to take action. You can do things like, okay, let's give this a go. I'm not going to let worry hold me back anymore. Let's make a decision. Let's move forward, okay? And in a world of worriers who are influenced by, because this is what causes us to worry sometimes, the media and the internet and modern culture, being positive and encouraging will be the light in the darkness to people around you. Your demeanor will shine the light of Jesus to those around you and uplift and change the atmosphere. And this will be bringing heaven to earth. Okay? So this is why. So you might be wondering, okay, Tim, how can I remember this? And the first thing you got to remember is, don't worry, God's got this, right? So remember, right in the midst of worry, you're going to say, don't worry, God's got this. Now, if you can remember the word don't worry, then try and remember this, what do we call it, Chloe? An acrostic. My daughter loves doing acrostics, and she helped me with this one. So D, detect that worry is coming. Take it captive. O, offer up your cares to God. N, do not be anxious about anything. T, with thanksgiving, prayer and petition. With thanksgiving, yeah? W is will. Seek God's above your own. O, optimism. Have faith and trust. R, rejoice. R, rejoice again. Y, you are not alone. The Lord is near. All right? So I want you to remember, don't worry. Everyone say, don't worry. God's got this. All right. So when I started today, honey, do you want to get up and not sing Kumama Matata? So when I started today, I said that I had this big point, which is a successful person does not allow worry to control or influence them. Now, I'd say for Christians, we can go one step further and say for a successful Christian does not allow worry to control them. Instead, they trust in the Lord, who is their source of peace. And that is the big point that I want you to remember. Trust in the Lord, who is the source of peace. And I'd just like to there was something that, as we were going through the prayer meeting, we were praying and stuff like that, and I felt the Lord wanted to open up this opportunity for us. And so I'd just like to open up, if you're in a situation where maybe you would like this peace in your life, or maybe you have never made the decision to invite Jesus in your heart, who is the Prince of Peace, okay? And maybe you've been hearing what I've been saying, going, you know what? I want to get that upgrade that goes beyond just what the psychologist says, and I want this God thing to influence my life. And so what we're saying is, maybe if you're in a situation where you actually possibly have thought about or worried about your eternal destination, like what happens after I die, where do I go? Or maybe you've been worried about some things I've done in my life are actually not right, and I know they're not right, and there's a part of my life which needs to be reconciled with God. I'd like to invite you to come and do that today. And so I'd like to, I know most of you guys here, but I don't know if you guys have made that invitation to invite Jesus in your heart. So maybe you have, or maybe you haven't. But if I could just ask if we could all stand. If everyone can just please close their eyes, that would be great. If any of the things that I just said, starting with maybe, apply to you, can I just ask, with everyone who's got their eyes closed and not looking, can I ask that you just put your hand up right now? If you'd like to invite Jesus into your heart, if you'd like to invite the Prince of Peace into your heart, and you'd be able to cast your cares and worries upon him. Okay, I see a few hands there, and thanks, guys. So if that's the case, I'm just going to pray something, and I'd like for you to repeat after me. And once we've done that, everyone's going to clap and cheer, and it's going to be awesome. And we're going to have the ministry team up the front. And if anyone's got some specific areas of worry they'd like to pray about, we can do that. But yeah, if everyone's got their eyes closed and their heads down, just say, Father God, I desire to be closer to you. I recognize that sin and some of the wrong things I've done separate me from you. And I know that Jesus came to earth, and he lived and he died and he made a way to the Father. So now, Jesus, I invite you into my life, into my heart. Be my Lord and Saviour. Be my peace. I choose to follow you all the days of my life. Amen. Thanks, guys. And can everyone cheer? Because some people actually did that for the first time and some people dedicated. And it's really exciting that in this place that people have just made a massive decision for their eternal consequence, which is they are united. They are part of the family of God. You've got a new brother and sister this morning. How good's that? All right, I'm going to invite Julie up and bring up if the ministry team could come up. You want prayer about any of the things we've been talking about, come up straight away. Don't wait. That would be great. Thanks, guys.
Let's just thank Tim. That was an awesome message, Tim. There was a lot in that. And I just want to remind us that our message is